Hi, and welcome to Mondays with Marlo. I'm very, very excited today because our special guest is Maria Bartiromo, who is a money woman. She knows, like Susie Orman, you've taught us all so much. And today we're going to have personalized questions for people who really feel vulnerable and don't know what to do about their money. It's a scary time out there. Maria, of course, is the anchor of CNBC's Closing Bell and the host of the Wall Street Journal report. So we know how good you are, how well informed you are, and we have a million questions for you. So I'm going to start right away. This is from Debbie Sullivan. Hi, Debbie. Welcome. As the economy rebounds, what industries hold jobs for the future, do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a really important question, actually, Debbie, and I'm glad you brought it up because there are so many industries right now that are in complete disarray and change. Everything is changing. Technology has enabled so much in so many industries, and you're seeing job cuts and unemployment really persist. I think going forward, the jobs of the future will be in a handful of industries. First of all, technology. Technology is enabling so much because of the cloud companies offshoring things on the web. There's going to be a lot of opportunities in technology because nothing is growing as fast as data. Data is growing. It needs to be protected. It needs to be secured. It needs to be organized. That's certainly going to be one area of strength and job creation. The other area of job creation is e-commerce as well as social networking. You're seeing a lot of opportunities there. So technology, a big area rich with job opportunity. Another important area to consider is healthcare. There are huge demographics that we are all faced with right now. We're living longer. Right now, you and I could live to 100 years old. I mean, that is a fact. With everyone now focused on obesity and getting their own health in order, we will need millions of nurses aides. So healthcare is going to create an enormous opportunity for people. The marriage of technology and healthcare. Right now, they're doing robotic prostate cancer surgery. It's extraordinary what they are able to do in healthcare as a result of technology. They've got these MRI machines that you could see every corner of our bodies. So I think healthcare technology, there is certainly opportunity as well in some manufacturing, but there are a lot of industries that are just probably going to shrink, like financial services. Things are getting tougher in financial services. Even though you've got population growth outside the United States, 1.5 billion in China, 1.2 billion in India, all those people are going to need all sorts of financial services, from mortgages to debit cards to credit cards. So at some point, that area will pick up again. But over the near term, I would say the best areas for job creation will be healthcare, technology, and manufacturing.
That's great. Well, you certainly know, don't you? That's great. This is from Lee. How can I make the most money from a bank savings account? Well, the interest is so low now.
It's so tough, Marlo. I mean, rates are at rock bottom levels, and the Federal Reserve has told us that they're going to keep rates at rock bottom levels until at least 2014. So I would not expect interest rates to move higher anytime soon. It's going to be very tough to get yield, to get any kind of an interest rate from a bank savings account. The upside of that is when your money is in a bank savings account, at least you're not losing it. Now, there is an argument to be made that you're actually losing money in a savings account just because of inflation. The rate is so low. So I would, depending on how old you are, diversify. Keep some money in your bank savings account, but also put some money in the stock market and look for dividend-paying companies. Those companies that are going to deliver constant, consistent income to you via a dividend. That's certainly something that could be very viable right now. That's how you could get a higher yield. There are some companies that are paying a dividend 4, 5, 6, 7%. Right. You could also do an exchange-traded fund, an ETF, which is similar to a mutual fund, but again, a dividend-paying ETF is the way to go. Bank savings account is going to be very tough to get any kind of yield.
But you said according to your age, so if you're younger or older, what should you be doing?
Well, the younger you are, the longer time period you have, so you could take on more risk. So the younger you are, I would put more money into the stock market, and you could pick your spots. If you see the market selling off down 200, 300, 400 points, look at the fundamentals and say, okay, so has anything changed from yesterday that all of a sudden things are so low? That could be an opportunity to get in. And again, you want to get into an ETF that has companies that pay dividends, because then you're getting that constant and consistent income stream, and you could reinvest that income, or you could just get regular payouts. So the younger you are, the more money you put into the stock market. The older you are, the more safety you want to have, so you have a little more money in the bank savings account. But as far as I'm concerned, everyone should have some exposure to the stock market, because over a long period of time, talking 5, 10, 15 years, that's where you're going to get wealth creation.
Great. This is from Selena. What are some of the biggest financial ripoffs out there? What should I watch out for? Now, this is what everybody's terrified of.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is I always go back to that one simple rule, and that is, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Don't think you're going to come into the stock market and get rich overnight. Don't think that some, scheme that somebody told you about because they know somebody and she knows somebody and somebody else knows somebody that you should be in it. It just doesn't make any sense. The bottom line is, if you want to invest and save wisely for the long term, that's the way to look at it, for the long term. You don't expect that you're going to be getting rich overnight. So, you could think about Ponzi schemes, and we could talk about, Bernard Madoff and all those ripoffs that we've read about and we've seen. But the bottom line is, use that one gauge. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is.
That's right. If all the Madoff people had thought of that, they wouldn't have been there. This is from Mike. What are the best ways to use a credit card? How are they good for me, and how are they bad for me?
Well, remember, a credit card is basically giving you your history of borrowing. So it's all there in black and white. If you miss payments, if you're always late, it's there in black and white, and that will follow you in terms of you being, a person who borrows money and always, is late on payments. So I think you want to use a credit card like an American Express. I'm not here to endorse any card, but I mean, if you use an American Express, you have to pay it all back in one shot. So you're not being, interest rated to death.
Right.
I would never, ever, ever carry borrowing over month to month and just pay back the minimum, because you'll never get out of that death spiral. You just don't want to do it. So only use a credit card when you pay it all back. And for me, I would avoid credit cards as much as you can, and only borrow money if it's something like you want to buy a home. Having a mortgage is actually good debt to have, because it sets up, again, that history for you that you're actually paying your payments regularly. So I am not a fan of credit cards. They charge you 18%, and then if you miss a payment, that'll go up to 25% unbeknownst to you. Stay away from credit cards unless it's a card that you're going to pay back every month in full, and you're not going to get interest rate feed to death.
What about using your credit card to get miles?
Well, I mean, yeah, you can get miles, but I mean, are you missing payments and allowing money to go over every month?
Right.
That is not worth the miles,
Okay.
in my opinion.
So as long as you're keeping it together and paying your bills on time, the miles idea is a good thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Regina, do you foresee the housing market going up soon? I'm looking to sell my house once my youngest son goes to college and moving into someplace smaller. What are your recommendations about the housing market?
I think it's very tough to time the housing market. You want to buy a home or sell a home when your life supports that decision. Not that you're trying to quick flip it and make money on it, but the housing market right now, there's an enormous amount of supply on the market, and that's keeping prices down. I think that the housing market is going to have a very, very tough time next couple of years. Prices have not stopped falling. Yes, we've had some evidence that things have turned. Maybe we're not at the worst point that we have been of the last couple of years, but we're not out of this yet. And I think that at this point, you could right now, look at your area. How does your house fit into that area in terms of supply? There's a lot of foreclosure supply on the market right now, and that's pressuring prices. If you can get the price that you're looking for, great. But again, then you have to, of course, buy something for yourself. I would say, my best advice to you is put it on the market, see what kind of numbers you can get for it. Don't try to time the market. It will come back eventually, but I think we've got a couple more years of this trouble.
Probably. This is from Benny J. There are a lot of so-called money experts on TV, and they often give very different advice from one another. What are some of the worst pieces of advice you've heard regarding financial matters? And are there any myths or common misperceptions that you could advise against?
Well, again, I think that the whole, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is something that you always want to remember. Investing is a long-term phenomenon. It's something to create wealth for yourself over a 5-10 year period. Mm-hmm. Don't try to knee-jerk and trade the market. Don't be a trader. Leave that to the professional traders out there. Be an investor. And an investor is focused on fundamentals. Remember in the 1999 dot-com boom and bust, we were all like, oh, anything that has a dot-com at the end of it will probably be a great opportunity and I want to buy that. We completely threw fundamentals out the window. We weren't focused on the fact that these companies had very little revenue. They had no earnings to speak of. All we were focused on is clicks to the website. Oh yeah, there's clicks to this website and a lot of clicks to this website. No, that does not create wealth and that does not create a company. Companies are based on fundamentals. So I think it's very important to focus on fundamentals. That means earnings growth, revenue growth, who's in charge, the management team, do they own the stock in the company? What is this company's product? And do you have a confidence that that product will be in demand in the coming years? These are the questions to ask yourself when investing in the stock market.
Is there any myth or a common misperception that you would advise against, other than it's too good to be true?
Well, I mean, I think, products matter. Look at Apple and how successful Apple has been. Why? Because they keep creating things that we like and that we use.
Right.
So focus on what the company does. I mean, a myth would be just because there's hype around the company doesn't necessarily mean that it's a great investment.
Right.
And sometimes even great companies are not great stocks. Microsoft has been sitting at this level for 5 years, hasn't done anything. Why? Because its product hasn't resonated with the younger generations the way an Apple computer has resonated.
Right.
So focus on the product. What are you really buying into? Are you buying into the company's ability to grow earnings? How do they grow earnings? Through their products. What are they selling? So focus on really the fundamentals raw of that company. What do they make? Do you think there's a demand story there? Will people want what they make? And what is it priced at? Real back to basics.
Right, really. Do your homework. This is from Leah 138. My husband and I are in our late 50s and we both work and we can't see ourselves retiring anytime soon. Is there any downside to not retiring at retirement age of 63 and 65?
Look, my mom she's about to turn 80, and I wish she had a job right now. I mean, it's very, very difficult to stop working and then to just do nothing. As I said a moment ago, the demographics of this country, we're living longer, but you need to keep your mind going. You need to work. You need to go get up in the morning and get at it. So I love the idea of not retiring at retirement age. I mean, a lot of people are talking about the fact that we're in this crisis. Someone said to me the other day, Maria, we're living longer. We can't afford this. This is a crisis. I said to him, whoa. Listen to what you just said. You said we're living longer. This is a crisis. This is not a crisis. This is an opportunity.
It's a blessing.
This is a blessing. So
right.
Look at your life. Look at your life expectancy and say, what else do I love? Maybe it's not the same job that you've held your entire career for 40 years. Maybe it's something else. But don't stop working. Keep your mind going. Keep your body going. That's how you live a long and strong life. So I love the idea of not retiring at retirement age.
Me too. I love it. This is from Marianne 1720. I think I've heard you say that one of the 10 laws for enduring success is make the biggest mistake of your life. Can you explain what you mean by that?
That was in my book, The 10 Laws of Enduring Success. And basically, I was telling a story. When I was at CNN, I was a writer and a producer, and I had gotten a promotion. And basically, the promotion, while it was more money and a better title, it took me out of the field. And at this point, I was behind the camera. I would write scripts for other women and men who were on camera. And I never had any aspiration to go on camera at that point in my career. I had been at CNN 5 years at the time when the promotion came. And I got home that night and I thought, wow, my boss is giving me a promotion, but it's not the job that I wanted. It's taking me out of the field. I'm going to be an executive producer in the control room, in my anchor's ear. It totally eliminated what I felt that I was good at, and that was being out in the field, talking to people, creating this great Rolodex that I was establishing at that point. And so I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to have to go back to the pieces that I put together, put myself on camera with a microphone, send it to other networks, and see what they say. Maybe the next step for me is going on air myself. So I sent it to CNBC. That was the only other place I wanted to work because they really focus on business news, and I love business news in the markets. And they said, we love your tape. We want to put you on air. And, I remember going home the day that I got promoted, and I told my mom, I said, oh, Mom, I got promoted, but it's not the job I want. And she said, oh, you can't leave CNN. I love Myron Candell, and I love Lou Dobbs, and they're your mentors. And I said, yeah, you're right, but it's not the job that I really wanted. I want to be in the field. So my point is take a risk. I was 25 years old at the time. I took a risk, and I said to myself, I'm going to try to do something different and go on camera. And it could have been the biggest mistake of my life at the time, but I had enough confidence in myself knowing that if it didn't work out, I'd brush off my shoes, get up, and start again. So make the biggest mistake of your life. Take a risk.
That's right.
Stretch out and think outside the box.
Great. That's what I've done with my website.
Exactly.
I know. Everybody said, what are you doing a website for? I said, it's another way to talk.
I love
Another
that you.
way
I
to
love
communicate.
this program.
Yeah, it's great. This is from Daisy. Uh-oh. What do you think of Jim Cramer? He said a lot of things that are off the wall. Do you think he's somebody whose advice we should follow?
You know, Jim Cramer is definitely a character on television. But the fact is he's very smart. He was a trader for a lot of years, and he actually knows the markets better than most. So I would say yes, Jim Cramer is a guy who knows his stuff, and while he has this whole shtick that he does with like lots of noises and, you know, on his show Mad Money on CNBC, the bottom line is this guy knows what he's talking about.
Really? Mm-hmm. Have you ever been on a show with him?
Yeah, sure. I mean, he and I have done stuff together on CNBC,
Right.
yeah.
This is from Amanda. Hi, Maria. I'm in my 20s, but my parents keep telling me that I should start a 401k. Is this really necessary since I'm so young? And if so, where do I even begin?
Absolutely critical and necessary for you, Amanda. I mean, you have to have a 401k plan. This is probably the easiest money that anybody has ever made. Basically, a 401k plan will force you to direct some of your salary into a retirement account, and then your company will match the dollars. So if you don't have a 401k, you are leaving way too much money on the table. You need a 401k, and yes, so what? You're in your 20s. That's exactly when you should start, because in 20 years, you're going to look at that nest egg and you're going to say, wow, I really have a nice retirement fund here, and don't touch it. Leave it alone. It's only for retirement. Just keep pouring money into that thing, and it will grow, and you will be so happy that you did it. And if you don't have a company that will match, just take an IRA out. An IRA is the same thing as a 401k. It just acts as a retirement vehicle, which is critical for all of us.
And Susie Orman told us, never borrow from it.
Never. You keep it there and you don't touch it. And then when you're ready, when you really are ready to retire, then you can look and you'll be so thrilled with the money that you have accumulated. But this is one of those, I have 3 buckets in terms of savings. I tell people to look at savings in 3 ways. Number 1, the savings bucket for just a savings account, and you just want to put some money in that. Number 2, your 401k account. That's the retirement. You put money in that and you just put it away. You don't look at it. And number 3, your mad money bucket. That's the bucket that, let's say, in 10 years you're going to want to give yourself a wedding, or maybe in 10 years, you're going to want to buy yourself a country home. Whatever. That's that. And those 3 savings vehicles should be very supportive of your lifestyle over a long period of time. Saving, plain savings, that's so that you have money in the bank if life throws you a curveball and you need it. Number 2, 401k, you never touch it. It's only for retirement. And number 3, mad money just for some treats, because we all need treats.
That's great. Great. And that's tips. We love tips. 3 in a row. This is from Wendy. I'm graduating from college. How do I even begin to understand the stock market? Can you break it down for the finance unsavvy ones out there?
Absolutely. I mean, the stock market is you are investing in corporate America. You are investing in companies that are looking to grow earnings. You want to get a piece of that growth in terms of corporations. And so that's really what the stock market is. I mean, stocks trade on fundamentals. So if you see a company that's growing, like an Apple computer, no surprise that Apple is at all-time highs. No surprise that the consistent growers, those large multinational companies that have exposure all around the world, that are exposed to the hot spots of growth in Brazil, in China, in India, etc., those companies are growing earnings. That's really where you want to invest in. So the stock market is basically investing in corporations. If you believe in America, if you believe in the fact that companies are going to continue growing their earnings and get exposed to some of the growth outside of the United States, you have to be exposed.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, that's pretty good. Don't you think that's a pretty good sort of down and dirty explanation of what it is, corporate America?
Exactly.
That's what you're investing in. And this is from Bet. Do you recommend buying stocks like through E-Trade as well as investing? And what are the pros and cons of buying shares, stocks on trading sites?
Well, I mean, when you buy individual companies, you are limiting yourself to just that company. So, I mean, I always recommend you be very diversified. You have exposure to some companies, you have exposure to other asset classes like fixed income, you have exposure a little to real estate, so you diversify. You never want to have all your eggs in one basket. Back to Amanda and that 401k. Let's say she works for company XYZ. Company XYZ in her 401k is probably invested in her own company. So you don't want to buy more on top of that of your own company. For the average individual, if you don't have the time to really do your homework and know where the growth is coming from, what the product is in terms of, really focused on insiders and if they own it, there is homework to be done. You have to really understand what you're buying into. Again, what's the product? Where's the growth coming from? If you don't have that kind of time, I would do exchange traded funds. This is a way to have a diversity and invest in a lot of companies. And also get dividend payers. There are ETFs like the leading dividend payers of the S&P 500. There's an ETF, the leading dividend payers ex financials. Like that's not including financials because the financials have cut their dividends. You could go the leading earnings growers of the world. Who's growing earnings most, and then again, that's an ETF, a fund that owns all of those companies. That's a way to get diversification in this market without having to focus on each individual company. Because if you put all your money in like XYZ company, if that XYZ company has a hiccup, has a problem, you lost all your money. I mean, so it's very difficult to just pick one or two or three stocks.
And how do you invest in the ETF? Through a trader or?
Yeah, any brokerage firm. You could do Schwab, Vanguard. You could do Wisdom Tree. There's a whole host of companies that actually have. My husband is the CEO of Wisdom Tree, and that's an ETF provider, which is why I want to. I mentioned that. And I want to make sure I have a full disclosure of that. But you could do Vanguard, Schwab, Fidelity. Any of these leading investment companies will give you ETFs. And I think the reason ETFs are better than mutual funds is because they're low fee, transparent, you know exactly what companies you're buying, and they're tax efficient. You're not getting taxed the way that you are in mutual funds. So that's why for an individual, I really like ETFs. That's where I have my money too.
Really? How interesting that you and your husband are both in finance.
Yes.
You must be loaded by now.
No, but we love to chat about all this. This is the kind of conversation that I love to have.
That's great. This is from Jimmy. A few years ago, I lost my job and had to rack up a lot of credit card debt in order to support my family. Since then, I've managed to find a new position, but I'm stuck paying off this debt. I'd like to pay it off as soon as possible. What is the best way to do this without going broke?
Well, I'll tell you right now, Jimmy, do not take on more debt to pay back the debt. No way. You just have to get through it, slog through it. Every 2 weeks, put more and more money of your paycheck toward that debt, get it down, get it out of your life. And it's going to take time, but that's the only way to do it. There are no shortcuts here. You do not take on more debt just to pay down the debt. You have to pay it off consistently. Some weeks you'll have, more expenses than other weeks, and some weeks you won't be able to put as much money, toward the debt. That's okay. Just keep this as your priority, and you'll be out of it as soon as possible.
Yeah, so don't take a loan to pay off the debt.
No way.
This is from Larissa. I have so many friends and family members that have been out of work since the recession began. I'm always hearing reports that the economy is getting better, but I haven't seen much evidence. Are things really turning around, and how long will it take for our country to fully dig ourselves out of this recession?
I think it's going to take a while. I mean, we're still in it. The problem is unemployment has been a real issue. It's persisting. We need to find ways to create an environment where businesses will create jobs. The problem is businesses are not creating jobs. There's a lot of uncertainty about...
They're cutting them.
They're cutting jobs because there's so much uncertainty. They feel that they need a nest egg to sit on. And they're not going to hire a lot of new heads to the payroll knowing that they have to give them benefits,
right.
Salaries, etc. So I think the unemployment story in the U.S. is still very much a negative story. Europe is also anyone's guess. It's a wild card right now. Europe is going through a debt crisis, and that is one of our biggest customers. We sell 16% of our products, exports to Europe. So we are getting impacted by the happenings in Europe. A lot of uncertainty out there. The good news is that we have turned the corner. We're no longer where we were in 2008 and 2009. So we have seen some improvement, but I do think there's a lot more to go. The Federal Reserve, every time they have a meeting, says the same thing. Mm-hmm. Consumer sentiment has worsened. Unemployment has worsened. I wish it was a better story to share. It's just, we're not there yet.
This is from Eileen. Hi, Maria. I'm a big fan of your work. I'm a 50-year-old businesswoman who was laid off about a year ago and currently looking to start a new career. I don't want to pursue an industry where jobs are sparse. What do you suggest? Where's the money now? You kind of answered this. You said it was in technology and health.
And healthcare, for sure. I think the other day I did a show from Pittsburgh, and we were looking at, how everything has changed. And a guy comes up from the audience. It was on the steel industry. He said to me, Maria, I am a father of a family of 5, and I have been working in a steel mill, in a steel pit for 40 years. I just got laid off. What do I know about making solar panels?
Right.
And I said, you're absolutely right. You
Right.
know nothing about making solar panels. But that's the point. We all need to arm ourselves with the right information and the tools to actually not just survive, but thrive in this new normal. It is a new normal. Everything's changing. Technology has enabled different things. It's put some industries out of business. Look at our industry, media. I mean, it's totally changed. So I think it's very important to figure out where the growth is in this economy and where are your strengths. What are you good at? If it is technology related, I think it's very important to have that skill set so that you can work in technology. Understand that skill set that you may need for healthcare. Manufacturing is getting better. The international story. We're all connected. You see growth in Brazil right now of like 5 to 7%. Growth in China right now, 7 to 8%. So it's also important to be understanding the culture of the world. Make sure you understand that this is a small world. We're all connected. That internationalism will also be very, very
And
important.
also, healthcare isn't just nursing. I mean, this is a businesswoman. She could get involved in the business of healthcare. There's a
Absolutely.
lot of that out there.
Well, what I mentioned earlier, I mean, those MRI machines, the technology in
Yes.
healthcare that enables us to see so much. There's also the digitization
Right.
of healthcare. I mean, how frustrated is it when you go to the doctor and you have to bring your films?
Right.
It's not on a chip.
Right.
That's all changing. This
Right.
whole city, New York, is being rewired.
Right.
Now, we're getting this engineering university on Roosevelt Island. So I think healthcare is really going to be an area that is rich in opportunity.
Great. This is from Penty. It's so unusual to have a woman be such a respected authority in the finance world. Did you find it hard being a woman when you started in this male-dominated field? And what advice do you have for young women who come up against this kind of discrimination? Did you?
I did. I mean, I was the first person to broadcast from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. So that was back in...
The first woman?
The first person.
Oh, the first
person. We never had a camera down on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. This was very much a man's world. It was a club of Wall Street, so no one had a camera down. So I was the first person. Happens to be that I was a woman as well. But when I first got down there were a lot of people who did not want me there. There were a lot of people who felt like, well, here's a woman, a reporter with a camera. This is not going on TV. We don't want to be part of your little TV show. I think that, I soldiered on because I felt that 100 million Americans were investing in this market. They had a right to know how it works, what goes on, rather than just seeing that opening bell every day and then at the end of the day hearing what the Dow and the NASDAQ did.
Right.
There's a lot to it, and I felt that, why not open up the spigot and show people what's going on? So I soldiered on. It did take some courage. I think my advice to women coming up in this industry would be, first of all, know your craft. Own it. Own your craft better than anybody. So I don't care if you are in the most specific trading vehicle job or healthcare or whatever it is, you own that so that no one will ever have anything on you and that you can make sure to keep coming back because that's what I did. People pushed back at me. We don't want you here. I knew I had the respect of Dick Grasso, the CEO of the New York Stock Exchange at that time. He put me down there. He allowed me to bring my camera down there. So I kept pushing and pushing. Make sure it's not going to always be easy. Make sure you own your craft. You know it better than anyone, so no one could ever push you around. That means study, study, study. I would also say, it's there are no shortcuts. It's hard work. I mean, work as much as you can, getting your foot in the door in some of these Wall Street type places, and I think that's important advice in terms of owning your craft, knowing it, work hard. There are no shortcuts. Do the right thing, and I think you'll be okay.
That's great. Great advice. I love it. And that works in any field at all. This is from Missy. What advice would you give an aspiring TV journalist? What's the most important thing I should focus on? And what do I really need to develop or concentrate on to succeed? So she's a TV journalist, but she doesn't say about which thing. But anyway.
Well, this is a lot of this I've covered in my book, The 10 Laws of Enduring Success. But I think the number one sort of most important thing for a TV journalist is, what are you good at? What do you love to do? Don't go into a job thinking that you're going to get rich from it. That is the total backwards way to do it. You go into a job because you absolutely love it. You love getting up in the morning and getting at it. Now, for me, it was business. I love business. I also love the idea and the industry of television. But for me, business journalism really gets me going. And I love it. And I don't want to do anything else. And that's why I think I have had some success. So I think it's number one, most important, to do what you love. Find what you love and pursue it. Number two, as I mentioned earlier, there are no shortcuts. Work hard. Don't think you're going to get into a job because you know someone. It's just not going to happen. You need to have your own credibility. And number three, when I said do the right thing, I meant it. Do the right thing. We all know when a dilemma comes our way, what's right, what's wrong. Do the right thing because it doesn't matter where you go, Brazil, Asia, Europe, healthcare, science, whatever industry you go, one thing will follow you everywhere you go, your reputation. Protect it, cherish it.
Right. Great advice. Great advice. This is from Tanner. Hi, Maria. I was out of work for 14 months. I went through most of my life savings just to stay afloat. I finally got a job again, but I feel very scared having barely any savings left. I have some credit card debt, but not too much. So how do I start saving again?
Slowly, you just have to do it. Make a commitment to save. You're going to have to say no to yourself in terms of buying extra treats for the next couple of years, certainly the next couple of months, and really make a commitment to save. I'm a huge saver. When I was a young girl, the ice cream truck would come down my block. I would hear Mr. Softy. I would say to my mom, Mom, can I have an ice cream cone? She would say, sure, you can have it, but how will you pay for it? So little by little, I started collecting change in a jar. And so that little piece of advice from my mom just resonated with me so much that even today, every time I get paid, I immediately, the first thing I do is I pay myself first. I write a check to my savings account so that the money is saved, and that's it. You have to just start, and you have to start saying no. You're going to have to come up with ways to make your expenses lower. And, if you really focus on it, I bet you can take some expenses out of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Maria, I've heard this is Joshua. I've heard so many things about how I should and should not be investing my money. I was wondering if you would dispel some of the confusion. Are there 3 top myths about investing, or do we cover that?
Well, I think, the number one myth is, that you can get rich quick overnight. It's just not going to happen. Investing is a long-term approach. That is how you create wealth over the long term. So I think you have to pick your spots. You have to be diversified. You have to ensure that your money is in places where you're actually getting income. I love the dividend plays that I mentioned earlier. Try to get some exposure from some of the strength and the power that we're seeing overseas. The emerging markets right now, even though they have slowed, they're still booming. So you want to invest in companies that are actually getting that kind of exposure to grow their earnings, because in the U.S., the domestic story is still recovering.
Mm-hmm. This is from Elena. I've been told by so many people that the best place to invest your money is in real estate. But with the recession and the decline of the housing market, I'm having a hard time believing this. Is it true that real estate is the best investment, and was it ever true?
Well, I don't know that it's the single best investment, but real estate has been a very positive and a powerful investment. There's no doubt about it, and I think that will be true over a long period of time. The problem is that what you really want to be aware of and focus on is whether or not valuations have run up unnecessarily. For example, back in 2006 and 2007, home prices went up. Pick any place in the country, Arizona, Phoenix. Phoenix home prices in 2006 were up 40% year over year.
Wow.
Did anything change in Phoenix that sort of, warranted such a move in home prices?
Right.
Was the school system any better? No. Was, the infrastructure any better? No. It was just this euphoria that we all were in that said to us, oh God, I've got to buy now because real estate always goes up. It doesn't always go up. Over a long period of time, real estate will be a good investment. But from year to year, valuations change, and you really want to be able to get in when prices are not skyrocketing.
And they're not now.
No, they're not.
So
they're
this
not.
would be a good time to invest in real estate.
Well, it depends on the area, but yes, I don't think that housing has bottomed. It could have bottomed, but maybe we're going to bump along the bottom for a little while. But yes, I think real estate should be part of an overall portfolio that is diversified.
This is from Allison. She says, Maria, I'm pretty young. I'm just starting out in my career. I don't have tons of money, but I'd like to start investing now while I'm relatively young. Do you have any advice on how to get started? Like, how much do I need to start buying stocks, bonds? I think that's enough of that question. What do you think?
Look, I think you should start small, and you could start with $1,000 and put $1,000 into an ETF. And when you feel that you have the wiggle room to put more money into the market, you start slow and you keep building. I do think someone who's young, and she says that she is, should really be able to put money and leave it alone. Yes, you want to watch. You don't want to put all your money in one company, as I said earlier. You really want to be diversified, which is why I like ETFs, exchange traded funds. And I think you just want to start slow, start low. $1,000, you could start $500, and then you just over your lifetime continue adding to it.
And she's also asked, what I know I have to put money aside to pay my bills and some to savings. So what percentage should I put into investing?
Well, I mean, depending on how old she is, I would say once you get your bills out of the way every month and you pay that, I think you look at the remainder of your money and you put, 20% in savings and the remaining 80% in the stock market. I mean, if you're 20 years old, you're talking about 60 years of investing ahead of you. So there's no reason, that you should be, accepting rock bottom low interest rates in a savings account rather than putting more of your money into stocks. First, get the bills out of the way, make sure you pay your commitments. And then when you have that rest of the money, I would do 20% in savings accounts and 80% of it in the stock market. As you get older, those numbers will come more into line, 50-50.
Right. And this is from Carolina. What would be the best buys for insurance investment instruments for people over 50?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a stock picker, and I'm not someone that I would necessarily, send you, buy this, as opposed to just giving you broad ideas like ETFs. So I wouldn't want to misspeak on that. I just don't know.
And this is from Janet Lawler. Is it best to keep several 401ks from over the years in separate accounts, like eggs in different baskets, or just lump them all together for investment?
Well, the 401k is a retirement vehicle. That should be one 401k, But now I will say this. I have two 401ks. I have a 401k with my company, and then I have a 401k with my outside work because I have written 3 books and I have a column in USA Today newspaper. So I have a 401k for my outside of my CNBC life. So I have two 401ks. If you are at one company and you had a 401k, let's say at, I don't know, XYZ, and then you leave XYZ and you go to company 123, don't leave your 401k at XYZ. Take that and put it into your 123. Mm-hmm. You want to have one active 401k. You don't want to have 401ks. And that's not what I mean when I say all your eggs in one, in different baskets. I don't think you want to have all these different 401ks everywhere. I think you want to have one central place that is your retirement vehicle, that is your 401k. Having said that, I will say I have two because I have two different jobs.
Now, we have so many questions, and I'm so getting the hook, but let me just be a little bit greedy and try to get a little more out of you.
Okay, I love it.
I know you have to run, but this is from Kathy Grabstone. What should a poorly paid high school teacher do at retirement?
Poorly paid high school teacher. Oh God, that's so many high school teachers, right? I think that with things changing, again, I'm going to go back to technology. Make sure you're arming yourself with all the right tools in terms of technology, that you know how to take advantage of technology. A lot of times now they've got teaching recorded, and then people take home that recording and they watch it from their teacher later when they're not at school, so they can do it on their own time. Make sure you know all the available things out there in terms of technology and how it's enabled different things for yourself, so that you could actually try to use that skill set in another way.
Mm-hmm. This is a very important question that I wanted to get to. This is from Shami Yumi. I'm a college student and I live with my family, and we live paycheck to paycheck. I changed my dream to become a journalist because the job outlook was bad. I'm only going to nursing school so that I can find a job to take care of my family. But I want to be a journalist, but I'm giving it up to do this nursing. Am I doing the right thing?
Well, look, nursing is probably going to be one of those areas that is rich in opportunity for many, many years to come. I think you've got the right instinct going into nursing. Journalism is my career, my business. I love journalism. Journalists do not necessarily get paid a lot of money. You might even marry the two, learn as much as you can about nursing, and maybe at some point write a blog on healthcare. Today anybody could just have their camera and be a journalist and report things online. So you could actually be a nurse and also have a blog on the side, or have, a website on the side discussing what you're seeing on the ground in nursing. I think you could actually do both.
And you never know when they could all come together.
Absolutely.
Yes. And then this is another question. Felix Scott. It seems as though many of the models that we learned in Econ 101 back in the 60s when I was an undergrad do not apply anymore. Why? Has the paradigm shifted?
Well, I think so. I think everything is changing right now. I think it used to be, supply and demand. Very, very simple equation. If there's too much supply in the market, that will impact demand. Today you have all these creative SUVs and SVUs and all this stuff that these investment bankers have put together, very creative derivative type products that are very complicated. So yeah, I think something has shifted. We've gotten more innovative in financial services, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you do not understand, but it means that this stuff is too complicated. Not even the government can understand it. They don't even have the people at the SEC to actually understand the complexities of it. That's all noise. Put that aside. Go back to basics. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Putting money into the stock market over the long term will always yield wealth creation. Be diversified. Don't look for knee-jerk reactions and get rich overnight schemes. These are really the facts.
And also this Felix says, I'm reading George Soros's book on the credit crisis of 2008 and what it means. Are there any resources you could recommend that will give me a better understanding of what we have been through and where we might be heading?
Well, I mean, look, my last book was called The Weekend That Changed Wall Street, and that was about the whole 2008 upset and basically how the debt spiraling out of control moved from individuals to governments. Now we've got sovereigns all around the world, Europe, the US facing trillions of dollars in debt. I mean, these are real stories and they have real implications. I would say there's so much written on this subject. George Soros does a great job in that book. I've read that book. The problem is it is somewhat complex. A lot of the things that he talks about are very hard to understand.
And does your book cover this too?
It does. My book covers it in, I start with that weekend. That's the weekend that Lehman Brothers went belly up, and I take you through sort of some of the personalities and how things have been impacted. It's called The Weekend That Changed Wall Street.
Arianna Huffington said that if Lehman Brothers had been Lehman Brothers and sisters, they might have the women might have noticed that
I
things
agree
are
with
going
Arianna.
awry.
I agree with that.
Okay, our last question. I promise I'm really going overboard here. This is from Kate DiPietro. What is the biggest thing you've learned from interviewing all these financial figures?
Wow. The biggest thing that I've learned is that it doesn't matter what your title is and who you are. At the end of the day, it's really about basics. And if people talk over your head and start bringing in all this stuff that I just mentioned, CDOs, derivatives, complexities, write them off, because this stuff is not brain surgery. I don't come from a business family. My father owned a restaurant. I started my career as the coat check girl in his restaurant. I learned it on the ground. I learned how to manage my own financial life. And I think that, it doesn't matter if I'm interviewing President Obama or, the guy, the trader on the floor on the street. Everybody is just, at the end of the day, like anybody else. And we all want to be healthy, live a long life, do well for our families. And so I think just break it down and recognize that we're all the same. We need to come together. And I think another thing is that, when people talk over your heads, they probably don't know what they're talking about.
That's great advice. Well, we're completely out of time. we're beyond out of time. Thank you so much. She's so fabulous. You're everything I hoped you would be.
Thank you so much, Marlo. It's an
great.
honor to talk with you.
Thank you. Thank you. See you next time.